The maid demon lived in an average-sized house with a garden. It had probably belonged to a wealthy resident of the city in the past. During the savage takeover of this city, part of the beautiful decorations had been destroyed, and statues which should have been there had been smashed. Still, the house itself was intact, and it did not seem like the cold air outside would leak in. Still, even a cheap and crude house could boast that. Every opening that could be considered a window had been boarded up tight, as though whoever did it were determined not to let air flow in or out. It smacked of paranoia. On the whole, this was a cage, or some kind of isolation unit. It was a place for someone who was nominally a minion of an undead being or demon, but who was also the subordinate of a hero who had come to save the Holy Kingdom. It was a place which had been built for many purposes, with a sense of impending danger and aversion blended in as well. While she wanted to ask what good several loops of chain around the maid demon would do, the Sorcerer King had not yet officially introduced her, so they could not be courteous to her. The wall around the house had been hastily repaired, but it lacked the crucial element of a barred gate. Had they taken it away because there was not enough steel to go around? In its place was a hastily built guard post beside the door that looked like a temporary hut. The man standing there was a powerful-looking man in full armor, the paladin who had been appointed commander of this place. Neia handed him the scroll which Caspond had prepared. The paladin quickly scanned it, then returned the scroll to her while handing over a lit candlestick. It was daytime, but the boarded-up windows meant that light could not penetrate inside. According to the paladin, the maid demon did not need light, so the interior was pitch dark. Neia went through the door and looked around the desolate garden before heading toward the house. She walked over a shattered brick road, and when she reached the main door, Neia took a deep breath. She used the knocker on the door, but there was no response. Neia hesitated, and then tried the doorknob. It was unlocked. She cracked the door open, and peered into the darkened interior. There was no sound from the inside, and it was as silent as a mausoleum. After gathering her resolve, Neia entered. There was no light inside, and no servants. Right now, there was nothing in this house but Neia and a difficulty rating 150 demon. Sweat beaded on her back. The candle she held shook unsteadily. Everything outside the candle's small circle of illumination seemed to have been sucked into the darkness. "I'm Neia Baraja. I'm here to see you. Where are you?" Neia shouted into the darkness, but the darkness did not respond. Was she sleeping? She shouted again, louder than just now, but there was no response. Neia screwed up her determination and stepped forward. This was a two-story building. It had many rooms, and checking them all would take quite a lot of time. Still, even without doing that, Neia might be able to pick up something with her acute hearing. She began with the first floor. Neia prepared herself for the worst and took a step forward. "Yua." Someone called out to her from the side, and a face appeared in the light. "Aye." Her shoulders twitched, and she unconsciously backed away from the face that appeared. Her back hit a wall with a thud. She could not have missed that face. It had appeared beside her as though it had passed through the walls. Felt surprisingly good. She saw the maid demon through her tear-lined eyes. Her face was blank as she watched Neia panic. "Demon," Neia grumbled. Was even the circlet of iron will helpless to prevent the feeling of surprise? Her heart was pounding like a drum, and it felt fit to burst. If that was the demon's aim. Nah, it couldn't be. "Why did you come here?" "I came here to ask you something. In 2 days' time, I want the two of us." It would probably be too dangerous to explain the operation in detail, since she did not know how far she could trust her. To go on a certain mission. Got it. So I think it would be good if we could share what we know and discuss what we can do. Sharing information is important. Understood. Whether or not she would really share information would depend on the upcoming discussion. Alright, this way. The maid demon moved with rapid steps, as though she did not care about the lack of light. It would seem the paladin she had met earlier was telling the truth. As Neia trailed behind her, she studied the back of the maid demon. She was a beautiful girl whose slender limbs and pretty face all evoked a protective desire in others. Still, it all seemed like a charade to Neia, who knew the truth about her. The chains she had been festooned with in Caspond's chambers were nowhere to be seen. However, the chains were meaningless to begin with. This demon was simply made in the shape of a human girl, and in truth she was a monster that could surpass dragons. As she considered that even a slight pat might be the death of her, her stomach began to ache. "I'm very fragile, so please be gentle with me." As she heard Neia mutter those words reflexively, the maid demon stopped in place, then turned around and said, "Got it." Even Neia's eyes could not make out any changes in her expression. Not knowing what she thought made her a little uneasy. They continued on until they arrived at the reception room. There was only a single candle for illumination. Sit, she pointed to the facing chair. Neia sat down. "Drinks." She suddenly produced a bottle of brown liquid. It was just like how the Sorcerer King took out objects. As Neia watched in surprise, she opened the cap and inserted a straw. It was made of a bizarre material that looked both soft and hard at the same time. She hoped that muddy liquid was not poison. It would be very distressing if she accidentally forgot that it was harmful to humans. However, if she was really a subordinate of the Sorcerer King, then she would not be able to refuse. Neia emboldened herself and moved her tongue. She took a mouthful of it and swirled her tongue. It was not as bitter as she expected, and it did not prickle like needles either. It's sweet. What is this? Neia took one mouthful after another. While it was sticky and needed some effort to suck up, it was cool, refreshing, and delicious. Chocolate flavored. Calories are a little high, around 2,000. But don't worry. Eating good food and getting fat is a long-cherished ambition for women, according to a certain great person. The change in tone made Neia peek at her face again, but she was still expressionless. The words great person made her think of the Sorcerer King, but Neia had the feeling she was referring to someone else. Want another? May I? The maid demon probably knew that it would be a shame to finish it up in one go, and she took out another bottle. Neia was also a girl, although the orcs had wondered if she was a female, and it was hard for her to reach out for something that would make her fat. However, this drink was in a small container, which meant there was not much of it. Eating too much of anything would make one fat, so all she had to do was eat less at dinner to cancel it out. I have no idea what these calories are or how much 2,000 of them make, but she said it was a little, so it should be fine. It was a sweetness that was completely different from that of fruits or honey. This time, she would savor the taste as she drank it. She took a mouthful. Ah, no, that's not why I came. I came to talk. The maid demon sucked on the straw and drank in the same way as Neia had, while her eyes signaled Neia to continue. Well, first, if you have a name, could you tell it to me? I'm Neia Baraja, but you can call me whatever you want. According to Evil Eye of Blue Rose, each individual maid demon was completely different from the others in terms of appearance and equipment. In fact, the maid demons she had seen behind Jeldabe at the Caspond's room were completely different from this one. Maybe there were different names for different types of maid demons, much like goblins and hobgoblins. While there might not be a need to know its individual and race name, if the maid demon really was a subordinate of the Sorcerer King, then as a squire, it would only be polite to treat her with all due courtesy. Phew. Shizu is fine. I'll call you Neia. Shizu, is it? Neia had expected to be addressed as human, so she was mildly surprised. Is the maid demon's personal name Shizu? Or is Shizu her race name? Well, both of them work for me. Is it your personal name? Personal name? An excellent question. Yes. Personal name. Ah, forgive me. I don't understand demons that well. Demon. This. Shizu seemed to be mumbling. Neia could hear all of it, but since she was talking to herself, she decided not to take a jab at her. Alright then, Shizu. What can you do? Also, there were several maid demons, so why did the Sorcerer King choose you? I'm good at ranged attacks. Also because I was MVP. Best. Ah, is it? So at that time you were the most troublesome opponent, is it? Shizu chuckled. That said, her face did not seem to change. However, Neia had sharp eyes, and she understood after observing her carefully. There was a very slight change in her expression. She seemed proud. At the same time, Neia relaxed. It would seem she had not been easily controlled because she was the weakest. I can use ranged weapons too, but in turn I'm not good at close combat. We don't have a frontliner. Shizu sipped her drink in silence. Got any ideas? What are we doing? Infiltrating a city and rescuing a VIP. She could not mention the word earn yet. Then we need the ability to move stealthily. Better not to have a clanky frontliner making lots of noise. Yes, that's right. Can you move quietly, Neia? I had some training, so I'm probably better than before. However, I'm not fully confident in myself. Can you cast spells like invisibility, or do you have magic items that can do so? Neia shook her head. I see. Work hard then. Yes, I will. Then. Could she really trust Shizu? Could she believe that she was under the Sorcerer King's control? If Shizu was still a minion of Jeldabaoth and was pretending to be a subordinate of the Sorcerer King in order to spy on them, then telling her about him would be very bad. However, it was very likely that the Sorcerer King had wrested control of her from Jeldabaoth. In that case, not trusting her enough would be throwing away her best trump card. And so, nervously and haltingly, she spoke. In this place, I have the duty of being the Sorcerer King's squire. Shizu's artificial beautiful face did not move. I heard. He said she had vicious eyes. And then he lent her a bow, which was runecrafted. Show me. Alarms blared in the corner of her mind. Jeldabaoth had seemed quite interested in it as well. Still, if Shizu really was in the Sorcerer King's employ, she would not be able to refuse. Neia handed over her bow, and Shizu took it. However, she only glanced briefly at it before returning it to Neia. This is very good. You should let many people see it. She delivered the line calmly, so it felt like she was reading off something. However, she was probably imagining things because Shizu was not looking at the bow with interest. After all, she has spoken this way ever since she had first seen her. Thank you. Ah, yes. About what happens after the mission. Shizu held out a hand to interrupt Neia. You should let many people see it. Why is she so hung up on this? Shizu probably noted the bafflement on Neia's face, and continued. He lent you an excellent runecraft weapon. You should spread the word of Ain-sama's greatness. The word Ain's made Neia twitch. Making this clear to her was her top priority. His Majesty. Neia sensed from Shizu's blank face that she had not been clear enough, and added. That's His Majesty. Calling him Ain-sama is too familiar, don't you think? This time, it was Shizu whose face twitched a little. No, at a glance her face was still blank, but Neia was sure that her expression had changed. It's not too familiar. No, it is. Normally, you wouldn't address him by his name, but by his title. You just came into his service and haven't been of use to him yet. What's with that face of yours? Nothing. However, I want to call him Ain-sama and not His Majesty. Was the expression that could be vaguely glimpsed past that blank mask a look of pity, or was she crowing her victory? Even Neia did not understand, but it made her mad. This thick-skinned newcomer had come out of nowhere, and the fact that she was trying to cozy up to the person she so revered made her very unhappy.